There are a lot of important things that have to go into the visuals of a season of Kamen Rider. You want to make sure that you've got main riders who look heroic and really cool, of course, and you also want to have villains who look threatening, menacing, or just plain disgusting if they're monsters. You want henshin items that look fun to use, but you still want them to be believable in universe. And beyond that, with the rise of digital technology in the modern era, one of the things you can look forward to with the visuals of a Kamen Rider season is crazy henshin sequences. Flashes, 3D models, and more have all been incorporated in some way or another into modern Kamen Rider henshin sequences, and they can really amplify a scene or drag it down. In opening episodes, this is the moment of a scene, when our characters transform into the hero that we know they can be or the villain that we fear them as. I know this sounds cheesy, but for me, these moments can really be amazing and really elevates a lot of moments in Rider. But enough of this broad level discussion. Today's video is going to be me ranking every Heisei Rider henshin sequence from worst to best in my opinion. Actually, that's not entirely true, since it would be pretty impossible to give my thoughts on nearly every Rider henshin ever. I'm going to focus specifically on the primary Heisei Rider henshins or groupings from respective seasons. As an example, in one section I'll mainly look at doubles henshins, but maybe mention axles if I feel it necessary. Also, since I'm only doing Heisei, here's where I'd place a combo of pretty much all of Ichigo's henshins in 0-1, since they're the kind of main things for those interested. This video was suggested by Grand Muteki as part of the 10K subscribers special and was voted through by you guys to be an actual video. There are 4 more 10K specials to go through, so I'll give you all my thoughts on this amazing thing later on, but to be brief, thank you so much. And one last thing, remember that this list is my list, based on my personal opinion and a combination of suits, visuals, and sounds in a henshin sequence. Please remember that we all have different opinions and we'll have our own different lists, so please don't get angry at me and other commenters for our opinions. We're all right, that's what opinions are for. I feel like this is going on much longer than it should, so Twitter, Discord, let's get into it. In last place, we have Kamen Rider Agito. There's really not much going on with these henshin sequences. It's always just a quick flash and that's it. I do like the G3 henshin, which is like putting armor on. That's really different, but it's just kind of alright. It's also kind of weird. I will say though, the chronological first henshin for Agito with all the stuff appearing is actually probably cooler. If they made that the actual henshin sequence, this might be higher, but it's not. So for now, we're sticking this at the bottom. Next up is Kiva. The stained glass motif of this season makes the crying effect that we see across other henshins really unique, and the chains in this aspect also help to tie it into the Kiva motif. But then the actual henshin itself just really looks like a gray shifting mass. It's kind of ugly. I don't really like it. The next henshin we're looking at is Kamen Rider Kuuga. Now yes, the effects in this one are very dated, so it's kind of why it's so low, but I just really like the concept in this one. The stylistic choice of only showing select parts of the suits changing before the full suit changing is a unique workaround with the limited effects of this time, and I think it's very cool. I think it's actually a shame that this goes away after the first few episodes and is just replaced by the bad CG effects because they were so limited at this time. Another henshin that kind of works with the limited technology of the time is Kamen Rider Blade. The henshin sequence starting when the belt is actually attached with the standby noise is an interesting take, and it makes this sequence kind of feel faster. And then when the belt comes out, I really love how when the riders run through it, it kind of bends. It makes the sequence feel oddly grounded and functional in the real world, as if they're breaking through this seal in order to attain their rider form. Also in some henshins, the card goes into a different place and they run through that, and that's also really cool. Now we're getting a little bit crazy. I really enjoy the circling medals of the Kamen Rider O's henshin. It's kind of a mess, but I kind of like it. And it really ties into the colorful nature of just everything related to O's. I really like that with these circling medals, we get 3 that are singled out, the ones in the belt, and then they all combine and form the O symbol that then attaches to the chest and forms the rest of the suit. It goes from a complex henshin sequence to a simple henshin sequence, and it's blended together very nicely, and I really like it. Now it's time for a henshin sequence that's just simple. There's nothing really going on with Hibiki's henshin. He just hits the tuning fork, and then there's some sound waves, and then there's fire, and then Hibiki. It's very simple, but I really like it for that. The purple fire ties into the supernatural aspect a lot, and then the sound waves tie into the musical aspect a lot. So once again, a nice blending of themes. And I have to say, the purple fire is pretty fire. I'm so sorry, I will quit YouTube right now. Ryouki has this really interesting thing going on where they have the henshin in front of a mirror, and it's something that's so unique and feels really expanded on in the Rider Time Ryouki special, where in the mirror dimension they can do it at any time. So once again, we've got some aesthetics tying into the theme of the season, and I really love that. The different rider silhouettes that also attach into the actual henshin sequence itself are definitely cool, but the flatness with those images feels really strange, like it's probably connected to the mirror theme again, but in this case I think it's something that's weird, whereas the other stuff I actually dug a lot. We've been talking a lot about limited effects. Now let's get into something that's not. This is an epic henshin sequence, honestly, with all this techno music, this smoke blown everywhere, the countdown that happens before the actual henshin, the big ring around Forze is also really cool. I'm not entirely sure if it's supposed to be related to anything specifically regarding space, but I kind of get that feeling from it, so that's also really cool. The whole thing is just really cool, very quick, and I really like it for that. More big rings approach. Kamen Rider Wizard's henshin sequence is very simple, with just a flame circle passing over Wizard and the form appears, but I really like it in this case because red, and I also really like the fire aspect of this and the way it kind of changes depending on the form. Where Hurricane style, the circle comes from the top, land style, it comes from the bottom, water style comes from a different side. It's really cool. It kind of changes up the henshin 4 different forms, which you don't really see too often, and I think it's really well done for Wizard. The really cool aspects of Kamen Rider Ghost's henshin really comes down to the aesthetics of this season, where we have jackets as ghosts, and it creates this absurd moment where you've got just jackets flying everywhere before it attaches to our Kamen Rider, but it's really fun and I really like it. And then when they actually attach to our Kamen Rider, the suit actually appears with all these neon bits just kind of traveling down the suit. It really looks awesome in so many scenes of this season, especially nighttime shots, and ties into the supernatural aspect of this character because ghosts. Whoa, look at that. In 10th place, we have Kamen Rider Decade. This henshin is basically Ryuki's henshin amped up to an 11, where we have different rider silhouettes all coalescing into one single Kamen Rider, but these are actual like little 3D models now, so I think it's a lot cooler than the Ryuki one, and I love the little detail where these different decades have the symbol of Heisei riders on them before they all coalesce, and then when he transforms with the Neo Decade driver, they all have the other Heisei riders as well, so it kind of shows the power of Decade, where he combines all of these different Kamen Riders into one single form. I also really like the shot before he actually turns into Decade, where he's just this weird, gray, bald Kamen Rider. Just like the actual continuity, coming right after Decade is Kamen Rider Double. Now, honestly, the henshin sequence for Double is just a bunch of nonsense that merges together into the suit, but because of that, it's like really satisfying. It's just a bunch of like CG trash garbage all coming together and then creating a very slick suit. It's another contrasty thing going on, and I think it's really cool. And I love the simplicity of form switches where just a color changes as well. The extreme henshin of this season is also very cool, where it makes use of the aesthetic and it basically pulls apart Double, where it kind of splits down the middle in this very kind of creepy aspect, but it's also not really creepy because it's not really. But who cares about that one? The base Double henshins with all this nonsense coming together, that's really satisfying. That's really cool. Are you ready for a ridiculous Kamen Rider henshin? At number 8, we've got Kamen Rider Gain. Now, yes, these henshins are very ridiculous, where we've got fruit falling from giant zippers onto our riders, and then folding open, and then creating the rider. I love that. It's kind of like peeling fruit where they open up into the armor, but I like that everything follows this pattern. Almost all of the forms in this season follow this opening of fruit pattern, and in the first henshins as well, we get a shot inside of it where they get their helmet placed on, which is a really cool touch to show the first transformation of a Kamen Rider. This also makes upgrades in the season feel more powerful, like Genesis and Kachidoki forms, where the opening fruit opens a different way, and then later we have Kiwami that just absorbs the fruit. I just really love the absurdity of these henshins, but the cool way that the tropes get flipped to create more powerful forms. This is another aspect where I'm just talking about the entire season because all of the henshins in build are really cool. The base forms have test tubes coming out, and then they create these gunpla sprues per se, and it's a fun mix of genres. I like that it continues on with Evolt, but gets a little bit changed for that specific character. And then it gets really ridiculous and fun moving on there, with the Splash Riders having just big beakers that just burst into jelly that then falls onto the rider and creates the rest of the armor. The Knuckle forms just have massive knuckles that smash the rider out from their prison per se, and then the ridiculousness of Genius form creating just this massive platform and all the full bottles getting ready to attach onto the base suit. But then some stuff is so badass. Hazard form just getting smashed by these two molds, and then Evil Black Hole literally getting smashed by a Pandora box of sorts, and then shrinking like a black hole, disappearing, and then when he reappears, he's now in his rider form. That's so cool. I would have never come up with that. He just disappears and comes back. What if he just left? What would have happened then? Here's another henshin that is an upgraded version of another Kamen Rider's henshin, in my opinion. Kamen Rider Drive is basically an updated version of the double henshin, where now we don't have this weird nonsense coalescing into the suit. Now we have some actual coherent parts coming together onto the suit, and with some more added effects that make this really cool. The tire as a separate piece kind of grounds the whole henshin, and it adds a bit of a flair to the suit, and I like how this all kind of ties together, where we can just change out the tires for new upgrades, but if we want to change the armor itself, that also creates a new form. But then later on we see that Type Trideron really ties everything together, where the Trideron itself turns into the armor. Once it all attaches, it then creates its own separate tire that then attaches onto the suit. That is so cool. I love that so much. Drive's entire henshin aesthetic is so cool. So I have a question for you. Have you ever heard of Tron Legacy? I thought not. One of my favorite things from that is the neon lights. Do you know what else uses neon lights? Kamen Rider 5's. There's legitimately nothing more to these henshins than these neon lights forming around the characters to create the henshin, but it's such an appealing aesthetic for me, and it looks amazing in dark shots. Look at this. It's amazing. I like how across different riders as well, the form of the ribbons kind of changes because they're different riders, but that's fine. Now, originally this was at number 4, but I think that in some lightings, this light up effect can look a bit strange. I still love it, but it does look a bit weird sometimes. And we're at the number 5 spot. This is Kamen Rider 5's. I could not make that. Here's another abstract summoning of a Kamen Rider suit. Kamen Rider Denno's base form suit kind of just appears with these weird chunks that then come together onto the form. That's fine. I don't really care about that. What I do really like is the pieces of these forms that changes it up. They get summoned on train tracks. Like, a train track forms, and then the parts just ride on it. Like, they don't look like trains, but they're gonna treat them like trains. And it really ties into the aesthetic and is a very unique way to deliver the parts of the henshin. But then when the pieces attach and fold into place on the suit is so awesome. It gives a really mechanical feel to everything. But then form changes become really unique as well, where the parts come off and then rearrange themselves instead of just an entire reformatting. That's really cool. Denno's aesthetics makes its entire henshin pattern very unique, and I really like it. I mentioned some technological aspects with the Denno henshin, but Kabuto's henshins really take that to the next level. The hexagonal patterns that form the base rider armor is really cool, really technological, and is pretty quick honestly, but it's really flashy. It's something else that's so cool in its simplicity. But then to get to the actual rider forms, this armor basically gets thrown off, casted off, and then we got the slick undersuits of the Kamen Riders to allow for the extreme speed that's present in so many fights in the season. And I mean, that's honestly it. There's not much else. I just love how simple everything about the Kabuto henshins are. Generic, very high X8 spot. Yes, of course X8 is very high up on the list, but there's no X8 bias here. Well, no, there's a little bit. but I actually really love these henshins because they're so flashy and they're so cool. Okay, when they go into their base little chibi forms, they have to go through a character select screen. That really ties into the aesthetic of the season, and it's so cool. Yes, the actual armor appearing on the form is not that impressive, but what comes before it, where they select the characters, that's what really does it for me. That's really fun. And then when they actually open the gamer driver and run through the screen, yes, once again, there's nothing really special about that. They just run through a screen in most instances. But they actually take a note from Power Rangers in some instances, where they cut to a stock footage transformation that changes with each rider and some forms, and it really distinguishes X8 from almost any other Kamen Rider season. You almost never see stock footage transformations in Kamen Rider, but X8 does that, and it makes it feel really unique, especially because they aren't using the same template for each of these stock footage transformations. They all have different movements and sequences to them, and it makes every single one really awesome and really unique. Once again, the expert tying together of the season's themes and aesthetics in these henshin sequences makes the transformation so fun, and it's why X8 is at the number 2 spot. What would I put at the number 1 spot? What do I love more than Kamen Rider X8's henshin sequences? Kamen Rider Geo. It takes a cue from X8 with the background sequence, with the giant clocks that form before the henshin actually happens, but then it happens in such a cool way with these watch bands just forming around our characters, and then the giant clock actually launches the eye text that then attaches onto the helmet. I don't know what's so cool about the eye text slamming onto the helmet. Maybe it's the sounds, how mechanical it feels. Maybe it's just the absurdity again, but I just love the eyes attaching onto the helmet. Every form has that, and I love that. Speaking of every form, being an anniversary season, we've also got henshin references in these henshins. We've got the magic gate for wizard, the Gaim armor attaches like the fruits in that season, we've got the mini robos for double, we've got full bottles for build, and we even copy Decade's multiple riders coming together, but this time it uses the actual different armors for the Decade armor. Really unique elaborations on the henshin sequences from these different riders. But even then, it's got its own unique henshin sequences that are so over the top with the final forms specifically. All the statues for Grand Geo, the one giant statue for Oma form, and then probably what I'd say is my favorite henshin of all time with Ammaji. Look at this. He's surrounded by lava, and then all this metal band stuff just attaches onto him, and then the menacing slamming of the eyes onto his face to create this amazing suit in an amazing sequence. I just love all the henshins in this season. A lot of my favorite henshin sequences in all of Kamen Rider come from Kamen Rider Geo, so that's why Geo is at the number 1 spot. So this was a really fun list to make. All of these henshin sequences are awesome in their own ways, and ranking them was actually pretty enjoyable for me. Remember to let me know your own thoughts on the many henshin sequences of Kamen Rider down in the comment section, or you can even put your own lists if you have those at the ready. Let's just get a discussion going for those Kamen Rider henshins. Also remember that this video is just part 1 of 5 of the 10,000 subscriber special event. Next time we're going to be doing something a little bit different, so if you want to stay tuned for that or any of my other videos, please consider hitting the subscribe button, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.